Hey, I'm Rivky Gross, and I'm here with my co-host, Hani Hecht Frankel. Welcome to our brand new podcast, The Possibility in the Universe.
We are so grateful to be sharing our first podcast where we dove into the energy of faith and all of the interesting and fun ways that it shows up in life. This episode is full of real life experience and laughter and just great conversation. And we're so happy to have you with us.
Hit subscribe to stay connected with us and to be notified when we drop our next episode. We invite you to listen until the end of this episode, where we will share more about ourselves, the work we do in this world, and ways to stay in touch. Enjoy listening. We are live.
Welcome to the Possibility in the Universe.
It's so nice to be here.
Every time we've had a conversation, Rifki and I have an ongoing Wednesday morning talk where we just download together. Lots of times it's guided by books that we're reading and or anything that's coming through that we could unpack together. And every time we've had these conversations, it's been like, oh man, only other people can listen to that because that was like came through with some seriously good stuff there. And so
I want to introduce a topic we're speaking about today, which is, as we were going through what are our favorite topics, we unanimously decided that our favorite topics are faith and space. Today, we chose to speak about faith and ask each other questions about our beliefs about belief and really delve into that topic. And we also discovered how our favorite topics, faith and space, are actually one and the same thing, which we will either dissect here or somewhere else. So much of this topic is so meaningful to both of us for some of the same reasons and for some of different reasons. And I know that we will have a really dynamic and embodied discussion about this topic. So I'm so excited to dive in. Really so excited to dive in. Yeah.
So I would love to slow it down for a minute. And his faith just seems like a very broad stroke to paint on a canvas. And it's like, how can we take this topic and kind of zoom into it or compartmentalize it a little bit into the way that it could be something that is more relatable than this very esoteric idea in the world?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious, what do we want to zoom into more specifically today? Because this can go into a million different ways. What is your passion calling?
I guess with your question, I will tell you which aspect of faith has been I've been zooming into, because like you said, it's such a broad topic. And then you'll tell me, and we might be in the same space. Chances are we are, because of the word space. We might be in the similar spaces, and we might be in different, our zoom in might be in a different way. So I'm excited to see. But what's been really, really active for me recently around the idea of faith is actually that song that we both really like, has a line in it. That song, Love, It Doesn't Go Away. I forget. Yeah. So there's a line in that song that says, faith is found in the moment when we come back to ourselves. And there's something about that. Yeah. Faith is found. Is that how?
Found in the moment when we come back to ourselves.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And there's something about that I've been zooming into. And recently, inspired by your book club of A Pocket Full of Money and Abundance, I decided to start teaching a book club on Shar HaBitachon. And my experience in that book club is that really we can't teach about faith if we don't teach about trauma or our conditioning or our child development, because in the lens in which through I see the world, because faith is our experience here. It's who we are. Faith is connection with ourself. Faith is connection with our essence. Faith is connection with the peace of Hashem inside of us, faith, or peace of God inside of us. Faith is a connection with our soul. When we're inside of myself, when I'm inside of myself, I am inside of this experience of faith. So it's not really that faith there's this aspect of sometimes some of the people that joined my class, they said, "I want to find faith." And what they're really saying is, "I want to find myself underneath the conditioning, the adaptive or defense mechanisms, underneath my childhood trauma, underneath the unavoidable but never true conclusions that I've created about myself due to my unmet needs." Because when all that's peeled away, what's left is pure faith. So that's kind of the lens that I'm seeing this topic through these days.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Uh,
Yeah.
sounds like more than just a concept outside of myself. It is a reconnecting with an essence piece within me, which is intrinsically me, which
Yeah.
which almost is like sometimes the things that we're efforting so hard for actually just is. It just is. It's about like clearing away all the things that isn't,
Yes.
or that somehow I was programmed to believe that it is and distracted into believing that it is. But really, those are all the things that are not. And what actually is this intrinsic faith that's deeply connected to my soul, that once that's kind of like swept away, it's like, oh, it really doesn't, I don't have to find it. I just get to rediscover it within.
Yeah, yeah. It's like faith is not this thing that's out there that I need to find, but it's actually this thing that's right here and always been right here. And that experience of experiencing that within myself and being able to teach that and see others experience that in themselves is such a wildly beautiful, beautiful experience.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so special. I'm curious about what that feels like, or what would be an example of what that experience is like in a more practical sense. Like, what would be a feeling of embodied faith in a more practical, I'm just like a regular person. I don't know anything about this. I've been searching for faith. I've been, working really hard to find faith. I've been asking questions that I'm not getting answers for. What does it mean? What does it mean to have an embodied experience of that?
It's such a good question, and what it makes me think of is yesterday I was on a live with Fava, and I she asked me a question, and I answered it with a question, and someone in the comments wrote, "Like a good Jew, answering a question with a question." So, I'm gonna kind of answer your question with a question, which is when at the beginning of the class that I taught, and at the beginning often of, like, a journey of where's my faith for myself, I ask myself the question of, "What is the moment where you lose your faith?" 'Cause
Mm,
that is a moment that's so telling. And the answer to my question is for myself, to myself, is always, always, I lose my faith when I lose my connection to my own goodness. And that's so telling about my development and my own, childhood and my own stories and the society in which I grew up in, right? And then for each of us, we might have a similar answer that comes back to a similar thread or our own individual answer because we don't see the world as we are. We don't see the world as it is, I'm sorry. We see the world as we are.
right.
We see the world through the lens in which so that means we see our relationship with our friends, our relationship with money, our relationship with food, our relationship with ourselves and our bodies and whatever, and also our relationships with God will be seen through the lens of what we did or didn't receive. So practically, to answer your question, I would recommend that we ask ourselves that question of when is that moment in which the experience of being in essence gets gets lost? When is the moment in which that I feel that that leaves me or I leave it?
Yeah, and I love that you said goodness specifically, because I think that we are so programmed from such a young age to understand things in the way of good or bad, right or wrong. Don't touch that. Like, or like, that's okay. You can have another one if you want. Like, that's okay. Like, we're programmed to be so guided by the right or wrong, yes or no, wrong or right. And this feels like it's beyond that space. It's like
Yeah.
coming back to our own, and I understand it's so easy to get lost in that space. It's so easy to lose track of our goodness because of the way that it was presented to us and
Yeah.
all of the circumstances surrounding it that determine that the black and white of of this like very dualistic reality where in essence it's like I have been good all along.
Yeah.
Good all along. And it's so easy and quick for someone else to pass the judgment. I'll speak for myself. Someone passes a judgment towards me. And because I believe in their goodness almost, that I believe what they're saying to me.
Yeah.
Right. And so then I consider with my whole being what that person's saying, where then I'm losing connection with my own truth inside of myself, trying to identify with what it is that you're saying because we are taught to identify with what's outside of ourselves to determine what is within us. And so now
Yes.
I'm looking for the thing that you told me about myself inside of myself. And it might not even be there, or it might be there in some kind of way. But no matter what, it doesn't take away from my goodness. It doesn't,
Yes.
now I don't become someone who is bad now or someone
Yeah.
who's not right or doing the right thing now because I'm receiving a judgment outside of myself that's also like deeply objective to someone else's experience. So it's like
Mhm.
that touching point, which I think is such an important point to like really sit with.
Yeah.
It's our own goodness. Can I believe that? Can I have faith in my own goodness? Can I see myself in my own goodness am? That I am. God has made me this way, that I am good. My soul is good. I'm a pure essence. And all I want in my purest essence is to love and to be connected to and to be a part of in this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So important and so important and in some way like so like kind of like, oh yeah, duh. But so easy to lose track of, like in an instant. In 1 second, I can go from feeling on top of the world to being like, I'm questioning everything about myself from that comment.
Right. And you tracked in what you just said, the place where that comes from, which is like this societal and sometimes from parents who there's no one to blame. It's like they get it from their parents, who get it from their parents, who
Yeah.
get it from their parents. But sometimes societal, sometimes individual space where we believe deeply in binaries. Like as you were talking, I was thinking like, my she did a mitzvah, like a mitzvah, a mitzvah and an avera, right? It's like, and the way that we learn that to be sometimes or internalize that as a child. I can think of something. Okay, I can't wait. I can't wait. Internalize that as a child as what I did makes me who I am. So when I actually say the word goodness, it's almost like I don't even want to use that word
Right.
because just like I'm using it because I know that we're speaking to an audience where some of us still believe in that paradigm. So I kind of wanted to walk slowly into the next thing that I wanted to say, which is when I say goodness, what I mean is isness. And what I mean is the experience of myself. It's there's this Hebrew pasuk that says that we pray in the mornings. If we do, Elokai neshama shenatata bi tahorhi, the soul that God gave me is pure. And it's beyond the actions that I do, and it's beyond the roles that I play in somebody else's perception of their life when they are seeing the world not as it is, but as they are, that make me into who I am, and is beyond my parents' approval, and it is beyond society's approval, and it is beyond the judgment, whether it's perceived as an outside or more accurately said, inside of myself. It's beyond all of that, and it's beyond space and time. And coming back to faith, when I'm talking about faith, and when we speak about faith in God, make no mistake, we're talking about the same thing. We're talking about faith in ourselves, is faith in God, is faith in the essence of all that is faith in love. And if we lose the connection to that, self to self, then that's when I lose the connection of that
I think
self
I
to everything.
Yeah, if I lose faith in my own goodness, then I cannot believe that somebody can love me, right?
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
believe if I am not good, I can't believe that somebody is going to love me. It's not, it can't be. And so if that is not true, then I also don't have where to extend that outward or inward, any direction once I lose connection with that. But I wanted to say that yeah, I wanna write you a mitzvah note and say Rivki did a mitzvah. She didn't bow down to idols today.
Well, wait, can I just say something funny? When I was in elementary school, they used to give like an award, like the best girl of the month. And when I got the award, so you're reminding me that like I'm trying to remember the last time I got one of these types of accolades. Which was that today, but then also then they gave an award, but I always got it in Sivan, which is in June, which is in the last month of the year.
Oh my god.
So my sister, who's a lot younger than me, got an award in her school like 2 months before the end of the year, and my mom called me to celebrate because she was so happy that one of her children got an award before the last one that they had to choose.
And that's the paradigm also.
I have a question for you about this topic and your own life. I know that recently in this year, you went through a really deeply transformative embodied faith experience with your experience of having a miscarriage pretty late in your pregnancy. And I know that you have been speaking about this publicly to the really deep appreciation of the audience that is receiving it. And so many people have been incredibly impacted by your vulnerability, by your faith, by your shares. And I know that this is another opportunity where people are listening because you've been writing a lot, but there's something about the way that you share these stories that really deeply impacts me and I know will be so impactful for others. So I just wanted to ask you to share a little bit about your embodied faith journey with all of this.
First of all, I think that this is exactly it. It's like the relationship of faith and space, which has been for this experience in particular, and many that have taught me this in my life, is giving myself the space that is being asked with faith that this space is the healing space. And so,
Mhm.
and what I mean to say is very specifically, like what I feel like I gifted myself, slash, I was gifted from Hashem, was the opportunity to be present for what's what I'm looking for, the passage of this soul through me. And I went into the labor. I didn't know that I was going to do it that way. I thought that I was just going to go for like a procedure, but Hashem knew for me what was best. And he knew that like being in the space of presence for the experience that I'm going to go through is going to offer me the healing that is so deep and so imperative to the process of moving forward. And as I was birthing this baby, this fetus, I like touched a place of grief inside of myself that I have never had the opportunity to touch before in my lifetime. And it brought out a sound from within me that was also a sound that I have never heard through my body before, of like a sort of like crying, wailing sound that was asking to come forth. And in the room, I also heard the midwife asking me to come back to my breath. And there was something inside of me in that moment that could have easily been distracted to pull out of the grief that I was in and to be in the breath, but I stayed. I stayed in the space that was being carved out for me to be in the depths of this grief because here is where it is. Here is where my opportunity is to grieve it. And I don't judge anybody who steps away from that because it is so painful to be there. It is such a painful space to be in. And at the end, there is no end ultimately, but the end of that experience in that grief that I was having, there came a point where it felt nourished. It felt fulfilled in what it was being like in what it was asking for to be seen in, to be felt in, to be sensed in, like to feel is to heal. I experienced what it is to feel that brought me to the point of heal.
Yeah.
I stayed in that. I stayed until I was ready, until the part of me inside of myself felt like full with whatever it needed. And then I went back to my breath. And when I came back to my breath, there was such a deep sensation of relief and attachment to my faith in truly recognizing that this was carved out for me and set up in this way exactly so that I can have this exact opportunity and experience. And in it was still the challenge, right? In it was still the test where the nurse was like, come out of there, come back to your breath. Don't stay in that place. And there was this part of me that was like, it was very tempting, right? So tempting, right? In one half a second, I can switch from this and like go back to my breath and take myself out of the experience that I'm having. Or I could stay, the choice to stay in it, even though it's hard, even though it's so painful, even though it's so heart-wrenching, but part of it is, like, when I grieve it, that means that I can be with the acceptance of the reality of it, which is that it's leaving me. To go back to my breath would be to avoid the feeling or to, like, distract myself from the acceptance of what is happening in this moment of space right now. Right now, I get to be in the grief, which means that I am accepting the reality of the fate of this situation. And so
Yeah.
when I came back to my breath, I was able to come back to it with gratitude.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it is a very sad thing. And like, and the grief of that is, and I get grateful that I got to have the experience of allowing myself to flow through that and honor this baby fully, accepting its possibility and surrendering, accepting which is surrendering to its passage is honoring in both ways. So,
Every
so
time I hear you
yeah.
speak, yeah. Every time I hear you speak this, and I know that we've spoken about it a lot of times, it hits me in a deeper and a deeper place because you're embodied, first of all, because the grief is still, you know, there and it's so beautiful. And also because your experience of faith, embodied faith, if may mirror back, is you being present with what is and giving yourself the space to be with yourself, not leaving, essentially, not leaving the self, was your embodied faith story. And your practical, quote unquote, example of a really, really deeply challenging real life experience. And when you did it, you received the present moment. You received the present moment. The gift that you received from being with yourself is being with yourself. The gift that you received from not leaving the self is receiving the present moment for everything that it gave you. And what the present moment has inside of it is all the healing that is possible in the universe. So being with the present moment was you in that moment being the possibility in the universe for yourself. And sometimes somebody might ask or wonder, or even in the way that we might have been raised to repress feelings, like someone might be like, "Ay, don't be sad," "Ay, don't be sad," because being sad means that you're not having faith. But faith is not a spiritually bypassing activity. Faith is being with what is in every single moment.
But
And
it
that takes up our, yeah, yeah,
almost feels like faith is an attunement
yeah,
to
yeah,
what
yeah,
your inner self is asking for right now and trusting that.
yeah, yeah.
Trusting that. again, sometimes we have to sit with it for a little bit because we definitely have a lot of layers of things that we've been told to believe or told to feel or told to
Yeah.
see. And it takes a little bit of time to like
Yeah.
to simmer and to like sift out other voices in relationship to your own voice. But when you do listen to that voice, that is the faith right there. That is trusting at this intuitive thought. By honoring that and attuning to that, it's given me this opportunity to really give myself the most because we are our own healers. We
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
No one
Yeah.
else can do the work for me. I cannot give you an envelope with confidence in it and be like, "Here, just make it happen for yourself." That's something that you need to tap in within yourself, you know? So it's like it's also recognizing that we are given opportunities like this all the time.
Yeah.
Can I recognize it? Can I recognize the amazing opportunities that are constantly being gifted to me to practice this possibility of the universe?
So this example that you gave, and I'm sure we'll have so many more on this journey that we're on of life, of podcasting. um, is like this is how faith makes its way out of the book. The books that we're reading, the intellect, our minds, the questions, and into an embodied experience of it. And one of my favorite Rumi quotes is like, the mind has no answers and the heart has no questions. And when we're in the experience of what we're experiencing, then we don't have any questions about faith. We're not even in the paradigm of questions. And when you were speaking before, it reminded me of like the acronym for ER is Ani Hashem Ro Rofecha. Is that how you say that last word? Yeah. I am Hashem. I am God, your healer. But when we really believe that the peace that Hashem is inside of us, that the whole entire universe is inside of us, then what we're really saying is, I am my own healer. And when we're saying the same thing with Moda'ani, there's a Jewish prayer for those who are listening that aren't Jewish that we say, we thank Hashem for giving us back our neshama, our soul. We thank God. We thank the source. We thank the essence of all that is for giving us back our soul. And when we're saying that and we really believe that a piece of God is inside of us, then what we are saying each morning is thank you to me for choosing to be alive today. So an embodied experience of faith is remembering that we have a piece of God inside of us and remembering to return to the present moment where all of life is and where the piece of God inside of ourselves lives, you know?
Yeah, I really appreciate that reflection, especially the part about questions. The heart doesn't have questions.
Yeah.
There's something about that that also gave me so much generosity and healing is recognizing that it's not about answers,
Right.
isn't it? It's not about the answers. And so once it's not about the answers and there are no questions, and once there are no questions, then I can just be with what is. And what is everything that is so magical and amazing and so honorable and in so many ways, I felt so chosen for the possibility to be the one, to be a conduit for a soul's energy that was asking to move through the universe, and that I was chosen to be someone to carry that soul and to have it pass through my body, and for that energy to be able to go into to wherever else it needs to go because our life, this is only one iteration of our life experience, and be brought into a real soul energy shifting experience really felt like such a privilege ultimately. So it's like once I don't have the questions, once I can really allow myself to be with what is, then I get to be with so much that it's offering me. And I get to see that because when I am so attached to having an answer, which there is no answer, there is none. So I am like, I'm chasing my tail for the answer that's stirring so much inside of me. I'm so unsettled. I'm so flying all over the. It's so hard to regulate. It's so overwhelming. Like that's what the other side of this coin is, So it's
Yeah.
like you really give yourself the time and space to be with what is, to like let go of the outcome, to be in the presence of the acceptance, to it just there's the peace in that space, which allows so much ease and comfort and a feeling of being seen and held, even though it's not necessarily what I wanted, but
Right.
not the point. The point is like
Right.
feel held even in the spaces where I'm not necessarily receiving what I have the attachment to the desire of what I want too.
I also witnessed you in this whole process, like when you became pregnant and then when you and I know you wrote about this as well, and like when you had the miscarriage, like throughout all of the stages of this process, like you're allowing of yourself to be with and then release and be with and release was me witnessing such embodied experience of being with the self. It's like, what is the present moment calling for now? And you did that constantly. And as your friend, it was such a beautiful experience to witness you in a really, really transformational, transcendent is really the right word, faith. And it's something that you embody. And I think at different levels of consciousness, you've embodied it in different ways. And now I see you embodying it with embodiment. And it's so cool. So I just wanted to reflect that to you.
I appreciate it. It feels also really nice to be seen in my
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
I appreciate all your support and your witnessing. And yeah, like what you were saying before, you're saying there's like the faith of the book, which is in my mind a more like intellectual faith, a more pragmatic faith, a more like, and then there's this like embodiment faith, which is like a faith through the experience of being in touch with self and attuned with self. And for
Yeah.
me, those two are very connected, like deeply
Yeah.
connected. Because I find that the pragmatic part of my brain really helps me simplify things to then allow me to lean in really deeply into my embodied experience. So
Yeah.
like even the idea of like there isn't a question. First, I ask the question, but
Yeah.
why? Why me? What's the point? What is this? Like all of these questions are what arises immediately.
Yeah.
Pragmatic part of my brain was like, hold up, right? Like, what's the motivation behind this? Is what's motivating this going to allow you to be present in your life experience, or is this going to take you in some way further away from what it is that you desire, which is to be in the here and the now and to be in gratitude and appreciation for what is? And so that's a pragmatic, like, unraveling. And then as soon as I had like my head back on my shoulders in that way and understanding very clearly the direction of my heart, then I was like, okay, so then surrender that. There is no
Right.
question because there is no answer. And so once I can let go of that, then I get to be with what is. And then once I'm with what is, I can be in deep appreciation and presence and love and all the beautiful things that are because there's so much more that is. There's so
Yeah.
much more. And the more I can focus on that, the more I notice it. To me, it's a very like they work hand in hand in the way that I understand things, like because
Yeah.
if I'm only going with my heart, then emotionally I'm torn and this is so hard and I can't and I don't want this and that's not what I wanted and like and like that the attachment to like what I detached from the freedom that I was anticipating to come into the space of being attached to this beautiful blessing that was inside of me and then to then have to like have that kind of ripped out of my future experience to now have a different reality. It's like if I only went with my emotional being and my
Yeah.
embodied experience, like it would just be, I don't know, for me, it would just be too much. So, like, I love the combination of being able to have
Yeah.
one from the other to like be able to flow. And so the Torah and the book teaches me the like tools and the skills. And then I get to take those. The point is that it's not one or the other. It's like we learn the skills so that we can take it and then apply it to our life experience so that when we are applying it, we are embodying the possibility of the universe by being that.
100%. 100%. I always tell, like, the practitioners that I train, like, we learn the concrete stuff, we learn the rules, we learn the modalities, we learn the tools, we learn the math in order so that when we are with the person, we are just with the person, our heart connected to their heart. But in order to do that in a way that's integrative, with integrity, with something that will make an impact, we do need to learn all of those other things. And then when we're in the experience, we're just in the experience because it isn't just one thing. It isn't just the mind and it isn't just the heart, but it is an integrative experience of both of them that bring us to that the embodied experience of. I once told one of my clients who was a religious Jew, I said, I was making a joke and I was like, we're not going to be able to shara bitachon you out of this. Like this is not this is not this because in that person's experience he was only using his mind, and in that way he was still spinning, he was still ruminating, he was still questioning, but there wasn't any space of allowing and being with. So some of us more lean more towards the tendency of being with, like, our emotions and only our emotions. And some of us lean more towards the pragmatic intellectualness and like the way that we have an embodied experience of faith in my experience of it is the integration of both of these things. And that takes nothing but unlearning. That takes nothing but deconditioning because like we said before this call, we were talking on the phone, and I said, we all intrinsically are a mammon. We all intrinsically, a mammon means a believer. We are all intrinsically a believer already. We are a believer in our essence. We are essence itself. Essence believes in essence. We
Yeah.
all are, and we just are. And anything that isn't, anything that is the spin, anything that is the rumination, whether it's emotionally or intellectually, is the part of is our conditioning, is our adaptive mechanisms, is the way that we've responded to our childhood. Both, both in needs that were met and in needs that weren't met, both in the ways that we do trust and in the ways in which we lose our trust, both in the ways we are in connection with ourselves and in the ways that we lose connection with ourselves. So, like, knowing that has flipped the whole learning of faith on its head because it's not about becoming anything. It's not about finding something outside of myself, but it's actually about being it already. And I can't even describe how passionate I feel about that, like how exciting it is to know that so deep in my own bones. Yeah. Yeah. So just went off on that thought.
Yeah, I love it. And it made me think about like that spiral that's like, do I believe it or is it real? Do I believe it or is it real? Do I believe it or is it real? Which is like just such a fun one to like spin with. And the other thing I was thinking is when I was studying with my dad this morning, we were learning about this idea of like fake it till you make it,
Mhm.
and like the concept of like faking something till you make it. But once it's not, we're not really faking anything because once I am willing to do the act of faking it, I have already made it because I've already surpassed all of the limitations that came from, again, like childhood, society, culture. And I am stepping into what I believe for myself, which is coming from my essence, which is coming from my soul. That desire, the desire to fake it, quote, quote, is already make it because I am honoring the desire which is within me. And that is from the source of my soul, which is the goodness that I am. And so here I am. So I'm not
Yeah.
really making anything. It's bullshit. It's all a
Yeah.
facade. There's no such thing as making because once I am, I am. Once I am already standing in all of what is already that I have
Yeah.
all in.
Another way that to translate fake it till you make it is just like be who you already are. you know, like it's
Right.
not really faking anything. It's just being who you acting in in the way that you already are.
Yes, yes.
So so yeah.
We play tricks on ourselves to, like, allow ourselves to just be who we are, which is what we were the whole time. We're, like, faking it so that we don't have to, like, take full ownership of, like, what we've always been. It's playing we just play games with ourselves. It's so fun.
Yeah. Working with humans allows me to and with deep work and within myself and with my friends and all of that, like, allows me to see how much humans desire just, like, permission and to be allowed
Yeah.
for everything. So, like, we create these, like, games in order to override our conditioning, which is never who we truly were, because who we are is everything that's underneath those unavoidable but never true conclusions and subconscious patterns that are not us. So it's kind of we're kind of cute and hilarious and sweet in in those ways.
I want to put a disclaimer out there right now that I give full permission for anyone out there that asking permission in any kind of way to fake it till they make it, to be under the facade of fake it till you make it because you are not willing to give yourself permission. I am here to tell you that you have permission to be who you are because you are here to be who you are. The world is waiting for you, the person that you are. And I remember seeing this quote on Instagram that said, if you want them to find you, then you need to be who you are. Like there's the only way that we can find you is if you are yourself. If not, we'll find your doppelganger and we'll be like, oops, wrong, wrong person. That's weird. I thought it was you because it looked like you and it's behaving like you and it seemed like you, but essence wise, it just wasn't. So it's like, disclaimer, permission granted, and if that backfires in any kind of way, just tell him Connie said.
Funny, funny, funny. The whole time when you were talking, I was I was like, "This is so beautiful what she's saying," but all I had was the most irreverent thought of, "Honey said." Like,
I have been accused as such many times before in my life, so
next time I fake it till I make it, I'm just gonna be like, "Honey said." What a vibe, yeah. I think this conversation is really fun for
yeah,
me, and it feels so nice. And I think we should start wrapping up and maybe ask each other one or two last questions or take one more little thread till the beginning, middle, or end of it on a little spin.
right, cool.
So,
Wanna
what are you
go for it?
feeling?
I was just feeling such deep gratitude for a class I was at with Yocheved just before this, where she talked about the space that the month of Elul is in between Av and Tishrei. There's like this
Can you
like
explain to people listening what LL is? Yeah.
so there's the 3 months. There's like coming from the summer months in the Jewish calendar where Av is that month is kind of a little bit more of like a morning month. It's not like really upbeat. And then there's this month of Elul where like the king is in the field. There's a time for reflection. There's a time for like integration to move into what's coming, which is the high holidays. And over the month of Elul, we blow the ram's horn, the shofar. And that elicits within us this invitation to listen into ourselves. It's like a sound. There's like a sound that's being offered, a listening that we have the opportunity to listen inward to reattune to what it is that, or what it is the direction that we're heading in. But I don't know how, but and this the Torah portion that was talking about the first words of the Torah person talks about going out to war. The Jews were moving from the desert and going into the Holy Land. And so they're going to have to like face reality now and have some wars in order to conquer this land and live in it. But I'm going to visit my son next week in Israel.
Mhm.
He is going out to war. He's
Yeah.
literally going out to war. And what it offered me was this possibility to really attune to what he is saying, listening to what he's saying. Because I recognized that the other day when he was telling me that he's starting to feel afraid, starting to feel afraid. His faith is shaky because he's getting closer to like actually going into war. And I recognized that my response to him was really a little bit misattuned because it was me reacting to his fear, which was like, I don't want you to be afraid because if you're afraid, then I'm feeling afraid and I wouldn't want to feel afraid. And so I felt like this offering was like an attunement to our child's calling our child within, right? The calling from within, the attunement, our actual child who's asking to be heard where they're with the isness of what is, with the moment that we're in right now. I am scared. Can you stay here with me? Can you stay here with me and not tell me, don't be scared or it's okay or let's try to think of another positive way to twist this? But like, no, I am scared. Can you just stay with me here? Because when you do, when you stay with yourself, like I did when I stayed with myself in the grief, I'm offering myself the most space to actually give myself the gift of presence that allows for me to have my healing.
Yeah.
And that I mature into someone that can. If I can be with him in the space of fear, then he gets to have permission to be with himself in the space of fear. And so there isn't resistance to that space anymore. And now I get to grow through that into whatever that is, into the maturity of being with fear in whatever else I'm doing. So the thought.
So beautiful. And that you just circled be circling. You just said a circles be circling moment because I love at the end of a class in my teacher brain to like bring everything back together, which is the line that we started with, which is faith is found in the moment when we come back to ourselves. And when I think about that and all that we spoke of today, faith is found in the present moment. Faith is found in the moment when we come back to ourselves. Faith is found in the moment when we come back to all the parts of ourselves. Faith is found in the moment when we come back and see others as a reflection of the parts of ourselves. There's something so beautiful about the zoomed in, zoomed out perspective that we did take today. And I want to end with a question that we can maybe both answer. And I'll ask you first. What does faith offer you?
Faith offers me space. What does space
Faith,
offer you?
faith offers me myself,
Yeah.
and faith offers me peace, which is who I am and who we really all are when we awaken to what is beneath our conditioning and who we really are. So, honey, this was so fun.
Well, glad we did this.
Yeah, so glad we did this. Tune in next time, everybody, for our second episode.
I'll talk about more things about being the possibility in the universe because
Yeah,
we are here to own all of ourselves and be the possibility of what is possible for ourselves, which ultimately overflows into every other aspect of our lives and the people that we can touch and connect with. And when we are standing in the ownership of the possibility in the universe, we offer that gift into the universe. And so I'm so
yeah,
happy to be here with you and to have this moment and to give ourselves permission to be the possibility in the universe by just doing the thing that's been tickling us and telling us we should. And so we just are and here it is.
yeah. And I was learning recently in the past couple weeks that if we don't tell them, they won't know. So I would just kept hearing that voice in my head, like, but if we don't tell them, then they won't know
Right.
because we didn't tell them. So here we are being the possibility in the universe and talking to you. And as we talk to you, we are talking to each other. And as we are talking, or rather, as we are talking to each other, we are talking to you. And as we are talking to you, we are talking to ourselves, all about being the possibility in the universe. Love you all.
It's always just so fun and adventurous to be in conversation with you and to see what happens here on this podcast of the possibility of the universe. We're so glad you've made it till the end and that we can be here with you to share more about ourselves and how it is that we show up in this universe.
The Possibility of the Universe podcast is only possible because of you, our audience. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks so much for being here and thanks so much for listening. I'm Connie. First and foremost, I am a believer. I am a wife. I am a mother of 6 beautiful children. I am the co-owner of Bimulo, luxury florist and event production company. I am a life coach working with both individuals and couples to empower them to step into their own possibilities in this universe.
Hi, I'm Rivky, and I love life. I love heart-centered living. I love to be curious, and I love to connect with all things. I started off as a social worker and developmental therapist, and now I work as a somatic and subconscious practitioner using modalities such as somatic healing, breathwork, bodywork, hypnotherapy, and some really magical and incredible quantum healing technologies. I work with individuals, couples, run retreats and courses using these modalities to help people find the most freedom, presence, aliveness, and embodiment inside of their lives. The ways to contact us are through my website, rivkygross.com. That is spelled RIVKY dash, the straight line dash, gross, GROSS.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Chani at Muckhome Sanctuary, and myself at Rivky Gross. We are here for any and all questions and feedback through the contact form on the website, and we're so looking forward to hearing from you.